Okay. All right. So we're recording now. So
So,
go ahead. This is your first time, Benjamin. Tell me about yourself.
yeah, I'm 31. I live in Sarajevo, in Bosnia, and I'm a playwright and teaching assistant at the university here for dramatic arts. And I work in theater and write, and I have an interest in the Dharma. That's about it.
All right. Tell me about your experience with Dhamma.
I didn't hear you very good.
I say, tell me what experience you have with the Dhamma, with Dharma, you call it.
Uh, yeah. Well, I've been meditating for maybe 6 or 7 years now. I've started through the teachings of Chogyam Trungpa. I started reading his books, and then eventually I started the daily practice of meditation, mainly his Shamatha Vipassana method, following the out breath and trying to expand awareness. And I figured out that I can't do it all alone, that I need a teacher for that kind of practice. And for the maybe last 2 or 3 years, I've been mainly practicing shamatha, following the breath daily for about, I don't know, depends on how much time I have, but in the morning, maybe 45 minutes. If I have the whole day, I'll meditate the whole day, and that's it.
Okay. Um, all right. Uh, you're giving an indication, but you're not giving any details. First thing I'd like, can you move your screen just a little bit? Right now, your head is being cut off.
What?
On your video, can you move your camera or move your screen
Ah,
so that I can see your full face? No, don't
yeah.
go so far back. You can bring it up close, but I'd like to see your whole head.
Is
Now,
this
that's the
better?
correct. Yes, that's what we're looking for. Okay, a little bit higher.
Great,
No, a little bit
great.
more. What you just did was great. Do it a little bit more. That's it. Okay, right. That will work.
Okay.
Okay. So, can you tell me more about exactly what your practice is?
Uh, I sit and I follow the breath, and maybe in the last half year or year, about 5 to 6 minutes after I follow my breath, I start to feel the tingling in the body. I don't want to classify things because I don't think I never had a chance to talk to someone
Hmm.
who who's more knowledgeable. So I'm a blank slate. But 5 to 6 minutes after I start uh, breathing, I feel tingling in and enjoyable sensations in the body, and then I get into a pretty concentrated state, and
Okay.
then I try to drop the breath and just be aware of my surroundings.
Okay. All right. Um, and how does that work out? Aware of your surroundings.
It uh uh it's great. I don't know what to say. It's not it's not always enjoyable. Uh, Sometimes some blockages appear. Sometimes I can't do that. It all depends
Okay.
on different circumstances. I don't know.
All right. Well, you've given me a little bit to go on, and I do appreciate that, and I will congratulate you on making some good progress. You've made progress
Yeah.
that other students have trouble making, on especially on their own.
Yeah.
But there's possibly more to do. So let me
Yeah,
start
of
off
course.
with.
That's
So let me start this way. First off, what the Buddha taught was the Dhamma, and that the Dhamma is very particular in that it has only one particular goal, and that is to recognize suffering and to bring it to an end. Dukkha, dukkha nirodha. All right. Now, what
yeah.
the Westerner sees from that is people sitting in a meditation posture doing things. And they're not really
Yeah.
related very well. That in fact, it's quite possible for people to gain the benefit of the teachings of the Buddha without doing a lot of sitting meditation. However, that's
Yeah.
not true for most people. Most people have a mind that's very scattered, and that it's difficult for them to then
Exactly.
concentrate on the Four Noble Truths in order to get anything really worthwhile done. So,
Yeah.
in that regard, I'm not a meditation teacher. In that regard, I'm a Dhamma teacher, and that we talk
Hmm.
and teach meditation integral as a way of getting to know the mind. That the Four Noble Truths, in fact,
Yeah.
is a map of the mind in the sense of, especially the second Noble Truth, which is the cause of suffering,
Mm.
is known as greed, ill will, and delusion. You've probably heard that before, all right?
Exactly.
The Pali is lobha, moha,
Yeah.
dosa. Actually, what that is teaching us is a variety of things, all in this one little statement. The cause of suffering is greed, ill will, and delusion, means that above all other things, suffering does not come from the outside world. It comes from
Yeah.
inside. It comes from one's own mind. It
Yeah.
comes from not from his greed, it comes from mine. It
Yeah.
comes from that is the greed that's on the inside. So this is the way that we get started with
Yeah.
the Four Noble Truths is, and in fact we do this with meditation. So in fact, you can practice meditation without the Dhamma, or you can practice it with the Dhamma. And so the way to do that is by
Mm.
integrating it. Now, many teachers, and in many cases and in many ways, they teach meditation before they teach the Dhamma. And the way that that can be said is that they teach samatha meditation or the jhanas or samadhi. They teach that
Yeah.
first, and then they teach vipassana. If you teach
Yeah.
vipassana without any concentration, then vipassana is very slow. If you practice only the
Yeah.
samatha meditation or samadhi, then you'll never get anywhere. The Buddha tried that.
Yeah.
He went through all four jhanas,
I know.
and he
Yeah.
recognized that's not the path. And yet, many Westerners, they think, oh, they've got to do it the way the Buddha did it. And that is screw up for 6 or 7 years and then figure out what you got to do and then do that instead. Okay. And so the right way
Yeah.
to practice is let's not screw around for 7 years trying to gain skills that we don't need, and let's start
Yeah.
developing the
Yeah.
skills that we do need.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so this is why Buddha gave anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, because before then they didn't use the body or the satipatthana, the body, the feelings, the mind's objects. Before that, they used external objects. They used casinos, actually a mud
Yeah.
pie. They used
Yeah.
stargazing. They used fire. They used all kinds of things, and they can, in fact, reach the jhana states. But the jhanas are not really what needs to be done, and the Buddha was dissatisfied with being able to train the mind. It's almost like this, that the deeper the concentration and the more narrow-minded or the narrower the focus, so that we start to throw things out and not paying attention to them while we pay attention to something smaller and smaller. All right. Now, what we're
Yeah.
going to look at is a domino a little square that's in a chain of dominoes. You've probably
Okay.
seen them on television. You click that first domino, and it causes the second chip to start to fall. And so it causes that second chip to fall, and by doing so, that third chip then, with its effect of falling, causes the
Yes.
next chip to fall. Okay. When the mind is too concentrated, we concentrate only on one chip and we do not see the relationship. And so the kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. I've
concentration that
noticed that.
so the kind of concentration we need is a focused, direct, open, so that we in fact can take in a vast variety of things very quickly, as opposed to getting too tightly focused on one thing.
Yeah.
And so that's the distinction between samatha and vipassana, and they're almost contradictory.
Yeah.
They're almost contradictory, but one thing
Yeah.
that they do have in common is that they're both in the here now. One is focusing very closely on what's going on. The other one is watching very closely for a lot of stuff that's going on. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed that in my daily life. If I meditate a lot, then in my daily life, I automatically follow my breath, and then some unwholesome reactions just pop out because I wasn't aware of the context in which they were happening. I was concentrating on my breath, and I had a great time, and some rage appears or something appears, some jealousy appears because I wasn't.
Okay. So this is in fact why we work with the Four Noble Truths, is because within the Four Noble Truths, or that second noble truth, is the teaching about the cause and effect relationships that happen in the mind from the beginning right through to the end. And the end is always in, when it's done ignorantly, it winds up in suffering, or if it's done wisely, it winds up in no suffering. And this is the normal choice that is
Yeah.
made, but the choice is made ignorantly. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
In other words, we have a feeling, and that feeling is ignorant, and so it begins to grow. Now we'll talk more and more about this as time goes on, but the point that I want to make to you is that this is all a very integral whole. That Anapanasati and the Satipatthana, the
yeah,
four foundations of mindfulness, are
yeah,
integrally involved with the seven factors of enlightenment and the Four Noble Truths. They work together almost to the point that it's like a Chinese box puzzle. Now, a Chinese box
yeah.
puzzle is three-dimensional. If it's two-dimensional, they call it a jigsaw puzzle that's got a lot of pieces, and then you've
Hey,
got a
can I
big.
interrupt you for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the sound is really bad. Can I take off my video because I can barely hear you? I
All
think
right.
it's because of the connection is poor.
Yes, go ahead. Cut your video.
Oh, okay, okay. Let's see if it's better now.
Actually, it would be better if we cut my video rather than yours.
Okay, okay,
So
okay,
if you will, turn your video back on, and I'll keep mine off, and that will work the better. Okay.
okay,
All right. And the reason
okay,
for that
okay.
is because my video is very high pixel rate. It's a very high quality camera, and
Yeah,
that the Skype just transmits that
yeah,
broad signal. Okay. So what we were talking about was that the Four Noble Truths is wrapped up together with the Anapanasati, and that everything is wrapped up as one thing, like a Chinese puzzle. And so I was mentioning to you, there's a
okay.
thing called a jigsaw puzzle that has a bunch of pieces of a large picture, and then you'll have only a small idea on the front of the box. And then you have to take every piece of puzzle and
Yeah,
put it together to get the thing. All right. The Dhamma has to be delivered to you that way, one piece at a time, with an overall picture, and it's up to
Yeah.
you to put things together. That I can't do it
Yeah.
for you, but I can give you an idea of the skills that you can practice to gain the skills necessary to put it together so that it becomes like a Chinese puzzle that you're given all the pieces,
Oh,
and when you can figure out how to put them together, you'll find out, oh, it's just one thing, it's just one picture or one Chinese box. That's all there is here, and that's the
yeah.
Dhamma. The Buddha talks about it in the sense of it being a handful of leaves. In fact, there's a
Yeah.
sutta. It's the I think it's the Symbian forest is the name of the sutta, where the Buddha is walking through a forest at the time of year when all the leaves are golden and falling to the ground. And he picks up a handful of leaves and he says, "This is what I teach, O monks. Which is bigger, this whole forest full of leaves on the ground or this handful that I have?" And they say, "Surely all the leaves on the forest ground are bigger than what you have." And then the
Yeah.
Buddha says, "How much I know is like what is on the ground here. What I teach is in this handful. It's only a handful of leaves." And there's been books written with that title and whatnot. But every student has to understand it like this also, and that is, yes, it's a handful of leaves, but boy, is it a handful. It's a really, really big handful.
Yeah.
But once you put it together and understand it,
Yeah.
then you recognize, oh, yeah, it's just a handful. That's all. And in there is a
Yeah.
change of
Yeah.
mentality. And that mental change is a change from being a victim is really a handful into the winner is only a handful. It's just a handful. So when we begin to look at that, we begin to
Yeah.
see that almost everything about the teachings of the Buddha is about a change of attitude from change of being a loser into the change of being a winner, of being able to see how we suffer
Yeah.
as a victim and we learn not to suffer, and that makes us a champion. All right, so
Yeah.
this is the
Yeah.
way, and so the Buddha is referred to then as a lion. In the Sutta Nipata,
Mm.
one of the very early works, he's referred, the sutta is by the name of the horn, and they're referencing the rhinoceros. Be like a rhinoceros, a single solitary
Okay.
individual that can live his own life, have a unified life. He's a champion.
Yeah.
He's not a follower of the crowd anymore. So this is kind of the result of the practice of the Dhamma is that we become free, and that freedom, and the word, by the way, freedom in the Pali is mok or moksha, and it's very common in the Pali or even in Indian religion. Like I had a teacher by the name of Muktananda, but that mukta Nanda
Oh.
means the bliss of
Okay.
freedom. Watsuan Mok means a
Mm.
garden of freedom, garden of liberation. So everything about the Buddha has to do with freedom. And what the freedom is freedom from all the lies you've been told. Freedom from
Mm. Yeah.
all the regulations that society has been placing on you. Your freedom becomes
Mm.
uh, freedom to be that which you want to be rather than being and trying to be that which you were told to be. By doing so, this
Yeah.
brings in a real life crisis for people. Am I going to continue living my life the way I was told to live it, or am I going to actually live a life of freedom and joy?
Mm.
Okay, now this existential life position is the life position between a victim and a winner. And that this position is
Mm.
something that needs to be practiced over and over and over again because our old bad habits of the mind is to be victim.
Mm.
So we have to take charge of that.
Yeah.
So this is how we do that in Anapanasati. Now that we've talked about it, it's no longer a meditation. Now it's actually a Dhamma practice. So this is how we practice it
Mm-hmm.
when at first, the very first time a student will sit down to watch his breath, the mind will wander away. When the mind wanders away, and it's
Yeah.
always going to wander away, even if you're trying to practice full time, the mind still wanders away on a regular basis. So,
Yeah.
when the mind wanders away, there's two ways of doing that. One is we don't have a clue. It just off it goes, there it went. We might be entertained by it, but we're not really mindful of it. We're not watching what's really going on. We're just doing things the way that we've always done it. This is the hindered mind, and almost always a mind of hindrance is going to be in the past. It's going to be in the future. It's going to have thoughts about problems that need to be solved. It's going to have thoughts of things we want that we don't have. And in short, wanting things we don't have is a form of suffering. That's dukkha. So we are actually in a state of
Yeah.
suffering all the time when we let the mind just wander around. It's a state of suffering. So if we can come
Yeah.
back to the breath, normally what happens is people come back to the breath with the same attitude that they were in hindrances. And that's the attitude of the victim, the attitude of, oh, poor me. And then they'll have thoughts like, oh, meditation is hard. Oh, I wonder if I'm doing it correctly. Maybe I need a
Yeah.
teacher. And so now we have a lot of doubts about what is the path and what is not the path. So
Yeah.
this is the time that it requires a change of attitude. This is important because this attitude change at this particular point is just an example. This attitude change is needed every time that sati arises. And that's to change it from the victim's position to the winner's position. So this is how we would do that. When we recognize that the mind has wandered away, we say, aha, I caught you. Aha, I caught you. Which meant that before the mind was wandering and I was not aware of it. Now I'm the champion.
Yeah.
Why? Because I can see the mind wandering away. And by seeing it wandering away, now I can happily drag it back to the breath and start again. Because now I'm champion.
Yeah.
And so this is the title. This is the thing that the Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and the Buddha, they call it gladdening the mind. It's a very important part of Anapanasati, but it's not listed until step 10. So many students get hung up on step 1,
Yeah.
step 2, step 3, when in fact the most important thing that they can do is step 9 and 10. What is step 9? To recognize that the mind is not watching the breath. We're now beginning to see the mind for what it is, wandering or not, concentrated or not, fit for work or not,
Yeah.
tired or not,
Yeah.
lucid or not, concentrated or not. These are all the various states of mind, and that these states of mind are affected by feelings, and they affect feelings.
Yeah.
And the states of mind also
Yeah.
affect the thoughts that we have. And so the very first thing we recognize as the state of mind is it watching the breath or is it not watching the breath? That's the very first thing that we recognize. This is the very first sati. And what it is it's all about to be able to remember. Now, I'm giving you very basic instructions, but you can see how this is going to work, regardless of what level of practice that
Yeah.
you're at. It's this change of attitude. From the change of attitude from being a victim into change into you're a lion, that you're successful. I can catch the mind wandering away. And once I can see it wandering away,
Yeah.
now I can come back and be here now happily. Because when we're in hindrances,
Yeah.
the mind is not happy, but we can be happy in this moment. So this is what we call a little nibbana. You probably heard that word before. You probably heard it as nirvana. Surely you've heard the word.
Yeah.
You have heard it. Do you know what it means?
I didn't hear the last part.
I say, do you know the word nibbana or nirvana?
Mana?
Nirvana.
No.
It's a very
Nirvana,
common.
I know. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. All right. What does it mean?
Extinguishing.
Okay. Extinguishing what?
Uh, the passions. I don't know.
Okay, that's not so
There's a
profound.
lot. Mm,
Basically, how
uh,
we use the word nibbana is that it's a cooling off process. An example would
yeah,
be baking a pie or a pizza pie in an oven, and when you break it out of the oven, it's very hot, not fit for eat. If you eat it, you'll
yeah,
burn your mouth. You want to let it cool down, not too
yeah,
much. Okay, that's nibbana, is taking the
yeah,
pizza out of the oven and letting it cool, or taking something off with the heat.
yeah,
Okay, so the extinguishment is not necessarily putting the fire out, but it's more of taking
yeah.
off the heat,
Just cooling it down.
letting it cool by itself. All right. And so, in that
Yeah.
regard, what we're going to be looking for is what we call little nibbana moments. Just a little nibbana,
Okay.
just for a moment that I can cool off and settle down and really enjoy this moment, perhaps with a big sigh. That's an out breath, by the way. That's step two of Anapanasati. And when you do it right, it feels really good. And having
Yeah.
the benefit of doing it, a lot of people misunderstand, but you probably heard this is in the Dhammapada, that the practice is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Have
Yeah.
you heard
Good in
that
the end.
before?
Yeah.
Make sure that you remember that,
Yeah. Yeah.
because your meditation has not always been good in the beginning, good in the end, and good in the middle. Sometimes we practice and it's not so
No.
good. All right. When it's not good, that means that we're not practicing correctly. That when we're practicing correctly, it works right then and there. Now, a lot of people think that, oh, if I practice meditation and do it long enough, I'll get the benefits. That's not the right way to look at it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
right way to,
Yeah.
I'm being
But
distracted by
sometimes
my,
even good meditation. Yeah. uh, Sometimes even good meditation sessions, because most of my meditation sessions are enjoyable and they are good. But sometimes days after them, I have physical symptoms, which are physical and psychological symptoms, which are nightmarish, not good, but really close to a
when,
nightmare.
when you say
High
nightmare, I
anxiety and
assume you mean you don't like it.
irritability.
Okay. When you say nightmare,
Yeah, yeah,
you don't
yeah. I
like,
see where you're going. Yeah,
yeah, back to
it's
the
not that I
feeling.
don't
So,
like them. Yeah, I get. Yeah, yeah, but it's hard being a functioning human in society and having abnormal amounts of anxiety, uh, diffuse anxiety that's not connected to anything. That's just, I don't know where it comes from.
okay, I do. I've been there. I've done that. I know all about it.
Yeah,
Not only do I know all about
yeah,
it, but I learned all about it and then carried it around without being able to do anything about it for about 10 years. And so merely
yeah,
knowing about it without
yeah,
knowing what to do about it is not enough. So, yes, I know that I carried anxiety, but now I know, let us say I learned what to do
yeah,
about it. And eventually now there's no issues with
yeah,
anxiety. Now, my anxiety was wrapped up with being in a
yeah.
hurry. I was always in a hurry.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. Most of my fights with my girlfriend are about that.
Okay, we can talk about that later. Right now, what
Yeah,
we want to look at is that whenever you get into a state of anxiety, still what we do in the very beginning of practice still is what we do right now also. And that is recognize, oh, there's anxiety there. Let me take a deep breath and start looking for that anxiety in the body and see if I can locate where it is. Do you know where it is when you have anxiety? Where
okay.
is it? Have you located it?
Yeah.
For most people, it's in the chest, right in the middle of the chest.
Yeah,
And
in
they
the
can,
chest, in the diaphragm, in the hands.
all right, okay. So now that we know that it's there, know that you can breathe into it. I noticed a while ago that when you were talking about breath meditation, that you were actually playing or indicating your nose. And so now that's just
Yeah.
another part of the body that we need to experience the whole body. And in fact, the place that we need to experience it most importantly is where we can experience the
Yeah.
sensations. Okay. Now, there's a really good important
Yeah.
reason why anxiety is where it's felt, and that is because that's where the blood in the body pools. There's more blood in the chest area and in the gut area than anywhere else. You've got the heart, you've got the lungs, you've got liver, you've got kidneys, you've got all of that stuff there, and so the blood is going to have chemicals in it. That's what the anxiety is. So if we can rid the body of the
Yeah.
chemicals of anxiety, then we're free. That's it. That's all we have to do. Well, guess what? The way to do
Yeah.
that is with breathing. We take a deep breath, we take in oxygen, we
Yeah.
breathe out, and we can relieve that anxiety. You can actually feel over the course of 5, 10 breaths that it actually breaks up, melts away,
Yeah.
and disappears. It really does. You do not have to
Yeah.
suffer with anxiety anymore with this little trick. And guess what? Eventually, it won't come back. Eventually, you'll have the thought,
Yeah.
oh, at, in this situation, I remember 10 years ago, I would be really uptight. I'd be really full of anxiety. But right now, no problem. And these kind of thoughts will occur
Yeah.
that you can recognize that you're free from it. But you have to go through the process of freeing yourself from it. And this is the process that is called right effort of the Eightfold Noble Path. These things have
Right
actual
effort.
important points that you have to have right effort. And
Yeah.
one's right effort is to come out of wrong view and come into one's right view. That's one's right effort. Now, we'll talk
Yeah.
more about that, but that's the point that at that point in meditation, if the mind has wandered away or if we're full of anxiety, these are two places to recognize that this suffering
Mhm.
and that this is wrong view to be in this state of suffering. Let me take the effort that I need to come out of this. And so we
Yeah.
see that, in fact, to practice anapanasati correctly, or even do meditation correctly, we're already using the Eightfold Noble Path to do that. That's how intricately involved it is. And not only that, but this issue of right intention that comes from right view will
Mhm.
be there day after
Yeah.
day, hour after hour, for every little thing that you come up to. So this is why we want to teach the student to be on guard for their feelings. If you're on guard, then you can choose how you're going to feel with right intention.
Yeah.
And so that's the skill
Yeah.
development. Okay. It's not some sort of deep state of jhana. That the real work is done in
Yeah.
the
It's
field. It's field work, not in a hole. But we need that hole. Why do we need the hole? This is the
mhm.
reason for it. And the Buddha uses the word seclusion. The Buddha gives the
Mhm.
analogy of a log in a bog. A log in a bog means
Okay.
a tree that's fallen in the swamp. Now, if someone who had excellent fire
Yeah.
making equipment, could he come by and light that log on fire if it's in the bog? No,
No.
it's wet. It's soaking wet. It's
Yeah.
saturated completely. Cannot light it.
Yeah.
But if we drag it up on the beach, can we light it then? The answer is no. It's still waterlogged.
If you let it dry.
If you let it
Yeah.
dry out. So you have to keep it out of the water for a while so that it'll dry out. That's exactly why we're practicing meditation, is to get away from the world, to get away
Mhm.
from the bog, to get out of it so that we can dry it out and the log can then figure out what is
Yeah.
log and what is bog. And that's a major
Yeah.
thing, is to begin to understand what is on the inside and what is on the outside, because most of what I think is on the inside actually got borrowed from the outside. And now that I see that, the outside can have it back. Thank you very much. Out it goes. And this is also
Yeah.
part of the process of
Yeah.
over and over again, we recognize that things don't belong in here. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not who I am. Out it goes. So now we've gotten
Yeah.
to the point that we can
Yeah.
recognize and see what is on the inside and what is on the outside. Now we can go back and deal with the world more correctly, because we can keep track of what's on the inside and what's on the outside. Before, we were confused. We didn't know who we were. But now that we know, and so this is the reason
Mm.
for the seclusion. This is the reason for the meditation, is to make the mind fit for work, to get it to dry out, and then we can make it
Mm.
fit for work, and now we can put it to work. And the work that we're going to put it to is to see the Four Noble Truths. This is suffering, and this is not suffering, and that
Yeah.
is, and all of that. And when we come to that, now we can figure out how to live our lives. We've got the path. We've got a roadmap for how to live,
Yeah.
all mapped out, and that's the Eightfold Noble Path. This is a noble path, which means not very many people do that. Most people are stuck in the world. They're stuck in the crowd. They're stuck in the bog. But
Yeah.
those who become noble, who understand the real teaching of the Buddha, they become free from all of that. And so this is the way, and I wanted to give you this kind of an overview of this is what we're looking for. This is the actual teaching of the Buddha,
Mm.
and it's doable. It's not magic. The Buddhist religion is full of magic.
Yeah.
But the teaching of the Buddha is very
Yeah.
practical, and it leads to freedom. But it's going to let you become free from all of the lies that you've been told. It also lets you become free from all the things you like. And sometimes it's very slow to give
Yeah.
up the things we like, not realizing that, in fact, because I like it, it owns me.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
example of that is outside and somebody sees a dog. Is that your dog? Actually, no. It's
Mm.
more like that the dog owns me. You know, I'm the. It's not that I'm the dog's owner. It's is that I'm the dog's human. The dog owns me. Same thing is true
Yeah.
with a house. If
Yeah.
you own a house, that means you're responsible. So if the toilet breaks, guess who the house wants to fix it? The house owns the owner. It's not the other way around. And so
Yeah.
when we begin to see that all the very things that we like wind up owning us and rob us of our freedom, then maybe we can detach from the things that we
Yeah.
like also, because freedom is better than clinging to things that actually are going to cause suffering one way or the other anyway. And so now
Yeah.
we become free. We become free from the lies we've been told. We're free from the religions. We're free from the governments. We're free from all laws, rules, and regulations, because guess what? Every student who practices meditation is trying to abide by somebody else's rules. This is how you meditate. This is what you
Mm.
do. But when you learn how to do it, then you don't need other people telling you how to do it. You know how to do it. When you know how to
Yeah.
live your life, you don't
Yeah.
need people telling you how to live your life. You know how to live your life. And this is the kind of knowledge, the
Mm.
security. So you wind up being successful, secure, satisfied. You become a lion. This is the
Yeah.
practice of the Buddha, is to be satisfied with the way things are. And so I wanted to give you this introduction so that you can see where this practice is going, but it is all based in anapanasati, because the breath is where we start with this process. Eventually, and that's why it's called anapanasati, is the ana and the pana are in and out breathing. It's exactly the same word as in the Sanskrit
Yeah.
when they use the word pranayana, like in yoga. Pranayana yoga,
Mm.
in and out breathing. This is in and out breathing, or out and in breathing,
Yeah.
and satis. Then we go to satipatthana.
Yeah.
Now, those are the four foundations of mindfulness. In fact,
Okay.
we practice Anapanasati for the fulfillment of the four
Mm.
foundations of mindfulness. Eventually, then, we start
Yeah.
looking at mindfulness, sati, as an enlightenment factor because it's repetitive. It comes back and it comes back over and over and over
Mm.
again. And so you can see this word sati is also a factor of the path.
So,
This is how sati comes, okay?
yeah.
Eventually, it winds up sati panya. In that regard, to remember to be
Mm.
wise, remember to take the wise way out, to remember to have wise
Yeah.
feelings. Okay, wisdom becomes the right word,
Yeah.
and sati is the way that we remember to be wise. Because if we don't remember to be
Mm.
wise, it doesn't matter how wise we are, we forget, and then we're back into suffering again because we're following our feelings, we're following our instincts rather than following wisdom. So sati is in the
Yeah.
beginning, sati is in the middle, and sati is in the end. It's always about remembering to be here now, basically. Is always to come back to this present moment.
Mm.
And that's the way that we practice. So
Yeah.
you can take this, what I've told you now, and incorporate that into the way that you have already been practicing. Because what I've been telling
Okay.
you, you already had bits and pieces of this, but now you're getting it as a unified whole so that you recognize, especially, the joy is the work. That's the right attitude of coming out of
Mm.
wrong view into a happy, right,
Yeah.
satisfied view. When the mind wanders away, never mind, start again. Aha, I caught you. When bad feelings come up, aha, I
Yeah.
see them. I got that. Okay, so we start to be on alert. We start to become aware of what's going on. But we always start with the breath.
Yeah.
And then we expand that. We expand.
Uh,
Go ahead.
uh, how do we? Because I think that I have a a too aggressive approach to my breath. I think that is maybe one of my problems in because I already told you I've been practicing breath meditation for I don't know a couple of years, but I think that sometimes I'm controlling the breath. I can feel I can distinguish between uh, me controlling the breath or the breath being I don't know shallow by its own. I
Okay, let me explain that
am
to
I
you.
clear?
Yes, I understand exactly. All right. Here's the way.
Mm.
The breath is controlled by two different areas of the brain. Normally, breathing is
Mm-hmm.
done with the control of the back of the neck, the medulla,
Mm-hmm.
and the old what's called the old reptilian brain. All right, that's where the breathing is down there
Yeah.
with the heartbeat. But they've also been doing
Yeah.
MRIs and figured out that oh no, when you're thinking about the breath,
Mm-hmm.
it lights up the frontal cortex. You're much more human when you think about your breathing than when you let it be natural. When you're doing it naturally, you're doing it instinctually and not watching it. So when the Buddha talks about these two different
Yeah.
kinds of breathing, this is it. The long breath
Mm-hmm.
is the knowledgeable, controlled breath that you're doing. It is a controlled
Mm-hmm.
breath. That's why it's a long breath. The
Okay.
short breath, maybe the word long and short are not the right word to use. If they are, then it's about how far does the chest move up and down. In other words, a long breath may,
Yeah.
may move the body a lot. You feel the lungs, you feel the chest,
Yeah.
you feel the upper part of the chest, the shoulders rise, and you can feel many things that are happening in the body. Now, what will happen is if you
Yeah.
let the breathing go back to normal, and I would recommend that you do maybe 5 or 10, depending upon, or even more than that,
Mm-hmm.
to stay focused on the fact
Yeah.
that you're taking long, slow breath and that you're watching the body while it's
Mm-hmm.
breathing. Then you can let it go back to normal breathing, but by doing so, you're inviting the hindrances
Mm.
to come back because you're letting the old reptilian part
Yeah.
of the brain now take control. And then if the hindrances come
Uh,
back again, then you say, aha, I caught you. And then you bring it back again. Now, that sequence of events is much
yeah,
more important than being able to stay on the breath all the time. Staying on the breath all the time is not what we're looking for. It's sati. It's to remember to
yeah,
come back, to remember to come back. Wherever the mind is, remember to come back. So think of it like this. We're going to train a dog how to come when it's called. A young puppy, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. If I lock that dog in a cage or
mm,
tie it to a tree, will it come when I call it?
no, no,
No. No, it will not.
no,
No, it will not. It will not come when it's called because it's locked up. That's the way of thinking about jhana. If we put the mind in too small of a box, then it is not fit for work.
yeah,
Okay, we have to be, there's a sweet spot. And that sweet spot is that the dog is paying attention so that when we call, it will come. And when it comes, in fact, the important
mm,
way of dealing with the dog when you're training it to come when it's called, what does the human do? He rewards the
he gives him
dog.
a treat.
He gives the dog a treat. You've got to
Yeah,
give this dog a treat too. This one up here, the one above the eyes. Okay, give that dog a treat.
yeah,
All right, this
yeah,
is important. If you're going to train the mind to keep coming back and coming back joyfully, you have to treat the mind. How are we going to treat it? Give it a little treat of
yeah.
joy. Aha, you came back. I'm so glad to see you. Come back, come back. Okay, so this is how we're beginning to practice. I'm glad to see you're beginning to understand now.
Okay.
This is what we're looking for, is that joy that I can do this, that I feel successful at it,
Yeah,
that I can train that monkey mind. In fact, that's an old term that's used is monkey mind, monkey mind. You know, monkeys are even harder to train than
yeah,
dogs are to come. All right,
yeah,
so in that regard, no, it's not a monkey mind. The monkey mind term comes from the meditators who are losers, who are victims, who are out of control of their mind, and they don't see them coming back into control of their mind. So they're basically saying, bad mind, bad
hmm,
mind. You're no good. You're just a monkey.
yeah,
Yeah, well, that's what people do. Well, that's still the
yeah,
victim. I'm being now victimized by my own incapacity to watch my breath. And that's the
yeah,
main change. This is that second step of the Eightfold Noble Path is right intention. To change your intention and the right effort is to actually do that change. So the right view, right intention,
okay,
and right effort and right mindfulness circle and run around each other.
yeah,
And the point
yeah,
that we're using is the point of recognizing that the mind has wandered away, but that refers to anything. Anytime that you recognize the
mm,
mind is wandering away, you can be out riding your bicycle, and then you say, I'm here now. I'm not thinking about going to work. I'm thinking about riding my bicycle right here, right now. Isn't this marvelous? Isn't this wonderful? Okay, so that's the way that
yeah,
we begin to look at things is be here right now. That is one's right effort, right view, right mindfulness, and right intention. The intention is to
yeah,
drop the old victim and become a champion, to become successful in this moment.
yeah,
If you can do it right now, you can do it the next
yeah.
moment. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Now you're beginning to see this practice. Excellent. Do you have any
Great.
questions?
No, right? No, just some technical questions. So how does this go? Because in the email you mentioned that this process is minimally 6 months, and when do I call? Because of the time difference, I really can't call you at 6 a.m. because it's really early here. I can call you maybe 3-4 hours earlier than now. And when do I
Yes, that
call
would
you?
be
And
that would be excellent. As early as you can. that would be the right time to call.
Yeah,
As
okay.
as early as
Okay.
you can.
And I don't want to bother you, so
I don't know that you can do that. Do you know how?
how?
I'm a pretty tricky old customer here. I don't go about being bothered the way most people do. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that I'm completely
yeah,
unbotherable.
uh,
I just got my buttons hidden away.
yeah. And I call you whenever I want. Do I have to read anything? Do you have any meditation instructions or something like that?
Not right now.
Because
Right now, you've got already what you already got, plus what I've given you today gives you a new way of doing your meditation, and then we'll talk about it a little bit later. Meanwhile,
okay.
if there's any books or anything, Google Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Buddhadasa,
Okay.
Buddhadasa. He is
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
he's the
I
most
know about
famous
Buddha
monk
Dasa.
in Thailand. Good, because that's where we have all of our literature will either come out of his teachings or directly out of the Buddhist suttas.
Okay.
And we'll
Okay.
start. In
Okay.
fact, I've been teaching out of the suttas already today. And the two suttas that I've been teaching
Yeah.
from is number 118, the Anapanasati Sutta, and number 10, the Satipatthana Sutta. A little bit out of the 117, the
Yeah.
Great 40, on right view, right intention, right effort, etc. So I know where I'm getting my stuff.
Okay.
And we'll talk about
Okay.
these things in detail. I've got kind of a list of suttas, but also anything that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa says. And if you find contradiction between what I'm saying
Okay.
and what Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is saying, we'll have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But we also need to investigate it a little bit because I don't teach exactly the way that he teaches.
Okay. Okay. And when do I call you next time?
Generally about once a week, maybe twice a week. Depends if you've got a
Okay.
particular
Okay,
question or
great.
if you've
Okay.
got a sticking point and you can call. If I don't
Okay.
answer, it's either because I'm not here or I might be with other students. I've seen now for sure that the old Skype I could have 4 students plus myself, a total of 5. Now it won't do it. It'll only allow me
Yeah.
2 students, the one that you were
Oh, yeah.
with. And then when I tried to bring Paul in, it got all messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a consideration. So don't feel bad if I don't answer.
No, 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 no,
Okay,
no.
but the later
I
in the
got
day
it.
I won't be here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it. I'll just have to wake up earlier. That's no problem.
No problem. No problem. A little bit earlier to
Okay.
sleep.
Thank
Early,
you
and
very much.
I'm glad you called. I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, I'm calling. Thank you very much again, and we'll get in touch soon.
Okay, excellent. Enjoy your practice, and I
Okay.
mean that.
Bye.
Especially, that's an instruction. That's a demand. I demand that you enjoy it.
Okay.
You must relax. I'm making a joke. All right.
I must relax. Okay. See you soon.
All righty. We'll see you later. Bye bye.